So, welcome to the virtual day of 2026 NZ Live Annual Conference. We're excited to have you join us here online. And you're in the lightning talk session. So, if you're looking for a different virtual session, you can find the correct Zoom links on Sched. And Jake's going to put that in the chat. My name is Jen Brozick. I'm the moderator for this session, and just we need to share a few things before we begin. So at NC Live events, we value the presence and active participation of all attendees. So by joining us, you agree to uphold the principles of our code of conduct, which can be found on our website. And Jake will also put that in the chat too if you're interested in reading that. So in the interest of time, we're going to save Q&A for the end of the presentation, or the presentations in this case. So if you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A box or you can put it in the chat, which can be found at the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen. So Jake and I will be monitoring the Q&A and chat in case anyone also needs assistance. So please make sure you stay muted during the presentation. It will be recorded, and then the presenters, sorry, slides will be posted after the conference if you'd like to access them after that. Um, so first off, I'm pleased to introduce our first presentation. It's called Procedures Are a Public Service by Will Ritter. Will Ritter is the Associate Librarian at Wake Forest University's Z. Smith Reynolds Library, and we'll go and turn it on to him.
Hello, everyone. So yeah, I'll go ahead and get started. So hopefully you can see my screen. So one thing, procedures are a public service. So oftentimes, procedures are, I think of them as invisible infrastructure. We only notice them when they fail, right? Hopefully we think about them outside of that, but but a lot of times we don't. And so there's an assumption, I think, that procedures are sort of internal paperwork and they're present for, if there's, I don't know how much it happens in libraries, but if there's an audit or you need to satisfy some administrative request, then the procedures are there for that. And that's they're treated almost as administrative leftovers. But I think this is not a great way to do things. So, because patrons experience procedures every time they come through your building, every time they interact with someone, and so procedures have patron-facing consequences. Um, Make sure I'm moving along in the slides. They have patron-facing consequences because if two or more patrons come in and they ask about the same thing and they get wildly different answers, that becomes a problem. And it can seem like flexibility sometimes internally, but it's not really flexibility for the patron. The patron just thinks it is bizarre, and so they don't understand it. It seems arbitrary to them, maybe. So that's an issue. And there's also, the institutional memory issue. Because tacit knowledge, as I've got in my slide here, tacit knowledge works beautifully until it doesn't. And we all have, in this case, I called the person Susan because I don't know a Susan, so I, I thought it was a good name to choose. But uh, we all have the Susan in the library who, or Sam or whatever you want to call them, who knows all the things, right? They seem to know all of it. They have a bunch of maybe institutional memory. Um, they might have been there for a long time, or for whatever reason, they're just sort of the encyclopedia of all the things about the library, and that's great. And there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, that's wonderful. But the Susan or the Sam or the whomever, they eventually retire, they find another job, and then, you know, where does that go? And so if you haven't written that down, if you don't have that somewhere, if your policies aren't up to date, then that knowledge leaves with them. So procedures, I argue, is equity infrastructure. Because if you have consistency in your procedures, if you keep them up to date, if you know what they are, and not just you, but everyone knows what they are, then that is equity. That is a type of equity. Um, and I'll give a little bit of an example. Here at ZSR, we have what we call reservable technology. And The idea is that the patron, not just the idea, this is how it works. The patron reserves a technology item. Um, some of them they don't have to reserve, but in this case, bigger things is usually usually on this list. And so they fill out a reservation. They get it sometimes later that day, sometimes in the morning, the next morning. Um, and so they pick it up at the desk. So that's how that works. Now, recently, I say recently, within a year or so ago, we found that a lot of this reservable tech was often kept in lockers that needed students' cards to access. And so we could actually not, they could still reserve it, but we could give it to them almost instantly in a lot of cases. And so we started doing that. However, this is the reason I'm using this example is because that's where it's that kind of situation where consistency can break down because it was very important to me and to my team that everyone that potentially works at the desk knew that this new thing was available, that patrons could get that access immediately. Because if they didn't, then maybe someone was working on the old system and told them, or on the old procedure and told them no, they couldn't get it right now, couldn't get it today. And then if they met maybe me at the desk, I would say, oh, yes, you can get it. So you get those different, depending on who the patron talks to, you get different responses, right? So that's where that could creep in. I think we've done a very good job of not having that happen, but that's about potential. Excuse me. Um, and so a lot of times this gets revealed in what I call stress test, right? So when we have a situation that doesn't fit the mold or the typical mold, we start to see where those gaps are. And so crises expose gaps. So the biggest, the most obvious example of this was COVID, right? I think a lot of us who work in libraries saw a lot of gaps, or at least some gaps in our procedures and operations. One funny thing that was told to me was that, of all the writing about what we would do in a crisis, we learned that at some places we learned that that writing was the biggest exercise in fiction writing we've ever done, because it was very different in reality. And so procedures in this case, uh, reduce the role of luck. So, it's not just about if a patron gets lucky and asks the right person, or if we get lucky and it works out. The procedures reduce that possibility that it's about luck. Um, and I want to focus here on, and this is really important for us at Wake, for us as ESR, students, employees are not temporary. So they are often the first point of contact that the patron has with someone when they come in. Students come in with zero institutional memory. So their training really shapes your service. We have about 50 in the fall and spring, a few less in the summer. And so the training, we focus a lot on the training of the students because they really shape the service that people receive. And I like to say oral tradition is not a scalable model. So you need to write that down. You need to have actual procedures for training your students, and update those, which we've done a lot recently to make sure that we're actually telling them the most up-to-date practices, not just what we were doing a few years ago. And they roll over a lot, so you're doing it a lot. You're telling them, you're updating them a lot. Um, so what do good procedures actually accomplish? So operational that well they're about it's about operational outcomes. So good procedures reduce ambiguity, so no one has to wonder, do we do this, do we do that? um, they reduce dependency on individual heroics because individual heroics are great sometimes, but you don't want that to be the baseline. You don't want that to be what has to happen for things to work. um, and they allow in a unit, a department, an institution to function consistently. So, like I said, those two or three patrons get the same answer to the same question. And so that's what it accomplishes when things work well. Um, but it doesn't just happen by accident. Smooth services is not accidental. It shouldn't be because it won't be smooth all the time if it's accidental. So there's a lot of labor that goes on behind the scenes. Often, it's deliberate, it's often invisible, and it's documentation, it's training, it's revision of your procedures, and the quiet discipline of doing the same thing the same way every time. And so this is sort of invisible maintenance work. One project that I wanted to mention that we're doing at Wake at ZSR is what we're calling standard operating procedures. And it's kind of a project that my team and myself have been working on for a while now. And we're just trying to make sure it's sustainable, but we're writing everything down basically, and we're keeping up with it, and we're sort of formatting it into these standard operating procedures. And to make it more sustainable, we are putting dates attached to when these things are reviewed, so that we're going back and making sure we're, not reviewing them all the time, but maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years, and that's just part of what we do when we meet. It's just which ones do we need to review at this meeting? Um, and so in sort of closing, I just wanted to say that, procedures are invisible when they work. And as I said on the slide, the invisibility, I don't feel as a failure. I think it's evidence of success. And so, yeah, I think I'm almost at time. I think it was a 10-minute one. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Will. Our next presentation is Growing Behind Books, Seed Catalogs, and Academic Libraries. It's by Ashley Apple and Grace Price. Ashley Apple is a librarian for instruction and access services at the Paul H. Thompson Library at Fayetteville Technical Community College. FTCC, sorry, alumni. Ashley also works in the collection development and interlibrary loan services. Ashley's very excited to have the lead on developing the seed catalog. At the Paul H. Thompson Library this spring, and is looking forward to growing, let's say, the collection. Grace Price, she's currently a library circulation technician at Forsyth Technical College in Winston-Salem. She works with interlibrary loans and outreach projects with neighboring campuses. So this will be included, but not limited to the Seed Library. And so she also enjoys sharing amazing book recommendations as well. So go ahead and turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. Hi. Um, Again, my name is Ashley Apple. I'm at Fayetteville Tech. We're going to talk about how seed libraries can find their places in academic libraries. Grace has already started a seed library. Hers has been working for several years now. Ours has just been in existence for about 2 weeks, but it's already really popular. So we're going to talk about how you would establish a seed catalog in your academic library. It seemed to be a popular thing in public libraries, but not so much in colleges, and even less so in community colleges, which is kind of a shame. Okay. So your initial assessment when you're considering these seed catalogs, what we had to think about were some of the things were what will house the seeds? Where are you going to put those seeds? Where will that catalog go in your library? And who will be in charge of the seed catalog as far as maintenance and marketing. And these might vary depending on how big your library is. You might have several people in charge. You might just be like Grace and I and have one. But we're going to go through these and talk to you about those questions. So first of all, what will house the seeds? In our library, it was kind of a no-brainer. We had a vintage wooden card catalog that was not in use. So we took that, had 30 drawers and 2 shelves, and it made it perfect. We put the seed envelopes in the drawers, alphabetized them, separated them by vegetables, herbs, and flowers. And then on 2 shelves, I made 2 folders, One houses all the information on the gardening, which is it changes. We sometimes have the calendars, sometimes the planting zones, and then we'll also have to talk about container gardening, things like that, pollinators, native seeds. And then the other folder is strictly for the instructions on how to plant each one of the seeds. So there's two folders there. Now I'm going to let Grace talk about what houses theirs. So
Yeah, I was gonna say at Forsyth Tech, our C library is housed in a vintage wooden colored catalog. So it's similar to what Ashley was describing. It has 45 drawers, it's huge, and it has a lot of different pull-out shelves. The C library is located in the back of the library, what we call the periodics room. That room initially was a newspaper room. It housed a lot of different information before the reorganization of the library itself. I'm currently in charge of the C library. It has been thriving for at least 3.5 years. We have different levels of seeds each year. So sometimes we have anything from flowers, herbs, tomatoes, squash, cantaloupe, watermelon, anything that you can think of. A lot of times students will come in and ask about the different seeds, and we try to refresh them at least once a week. Ideally, this is all located within the library and is open to all that comes into the space.
in our library, we put our seed catalog on the second floor over by the reference desk. That's also backed by our study room, so it gets a lot of traffic. That was one of our thought processes. A lot of people will pass by it and see it. And then also there's always usually someone at that ref desk. So if somebody has questions or needs assistance, somebody could be there to help. As far as the maintenance and the marketing, I'm oversee the seed catalog. Library staff can help out if they want to. So far, it's so new that I've been pretty much ushering it through all the phases so far. But I do make sure that the overstock, it's in my office. I make sure that if people take seeds, we keep it filled up. The marketing, we did a lot of marketing on our own even before the seed catalog came around. We did it at our orientations that we taught, our tours, our outreaches. We talked about it. And then we reached out to our social media team here at the college, and they did some social media stuff too. So we made sure that it was very much marketed even before it was in existence. Oh, and also there's a LibGuide on the library website. So there's a LibGuide dedicated completely to the seed catalog. Okay. Okay, so another thing you want to think about when you're establishing a seed catalog is how you're going to get the seeds to begin with. We procured ours from, most of them came from a place called the Gardening Co-op. They sent us a really big, I applied, and they sent us a really big bag of seeds. Most of them have been unopened. There were some that were opened, but they had clearly marked on them what they were, so that was helpful. That was a big help. We are also blessed to have a lot of gardeners on our library staff. So as soon as they heard we were doing this, they were like, oh, I've got these seeds and I've got those seeds. And I'm like, bring them on. So we started with that. Going forward, I have a couple of addresses of places I'm going to reach out for future donations. I'm also hoping that the people who borrow the seeds will maybe bring some seeds back when their plants need to be, when they reseed and when they do the vegetables. And we're also in the future going to reach out to some of our local community gardening shops and hardware stores because they like to be involved with the school. And we're going to see if we can kind of work out some kind of thing. You know, we'll say, oh, we got these from such and such or whatever, because our people here really like to give back to the community and work with the community. So, how'd you get yours, Grace? I don't think we talked about that.
I was gonna say for us at Forsyth Tech, our seeds are typically procured similar to you. They're at the cooperative garden. Most of the seeds that we get within our seed library comes directly from the cooperative garden. Sometimes we get donations from student, staff, faculty, and even community members. Last year, we did get some donations related to sunflower seeds, and I know that that is a big plant that definitely produces a lot of seeds. Stocked and organized, most of the time, how we stock and organize is based upon what is located on the front of the card catalog itself. Each slot and shelf has a label on the front of it. So if it's something with sunflower seeds or basil or any other fruits and vegetables that we get, we try to keep them stocked and organized to at least have five within each shelf. I've noticed that with a lot of students, they like to have a well-stocked, similar to like a grocery store, a well-stocked area of shelving, and particularly those seeds. So I try to keep them stocked and organized between 5 to 6 in a rule of thumb of what that card catalog can hold. Our marketing, luckily, was a little bit easier. To stir up some interest, I did originally when the C library started, we handed out flyers. And these flyers had things that had anything with different fruits and vegetables to stir up interest among faculty and staff. And then once we were able to set up officially 3 years ago, we were able to use our college social media announcement page, what we call TechLink. TechLink is basically both a employer and a student-wide announcement page that all faculty, staff, and students can see. It is updated constantly, and luckily, every year that I've done the C Library from March to July, those announcements are made upon there, and it has stirred up a lot of interest. I was going to say between March and July, I am typically cleaned house by July 1st.
Well, how we stock ours, we put them in the drawers, we divide them by vegetable, herb, and flowers. And like you said, some are obviously more popular than others. They clean those out fast, so I'm on top of it trying to restock. We have a little drop box where people, since it's a very informal process, they don't need a library card or anything. Since we market it to faculty and staff and students, they just fill out the card and say what they took, so I know what I need to restock. So we have those drawers, and it's divided by what type of seeds they are, herbs, vegetables, or flowers. We also have those folders there, and then we try to organize the growing instructions, like I said, in the one folder. So for every seed we have in the catalog, there's a corresponding little sheet that tells you how to grow it. We also, how we put them in there, and I will show you these if you can see it up close. These are our little seed envelopes that we put them in. And these are my supervisor's husband has a 1863 pedal operated printing press that has been passed down in his family. And he actually took the time and effort to print all those up for us. So we have these really, really cute little seed packets that they go into. If there's very small seeds, I'll put a little plastic baggie in there so they don't go everywhere when you open it. But they're great, and I love them, and they fit perfectly in the card catalog. So and that was not by accident; that was by design. I measured. And then let's see, the overstock seeds. I think I mentioned I keep them in my office right now, just because that's easier because I'm the one that refills them right now. But that's how we do that. And I already talked, I think, a little bit about the marketing. So we really did a big thing before it came, and now that we have it, we're just making sure we mention it everywhere we go. If somebody comes up to the desk and checks out books, we'll say, "Hey, have you seen our seed catalog?" Or we're just trying to get people to know it's there right now. And hopefully, first week or two, we actually had more than I thought we would. And now that it's summer, it might slow down a little bit, but I'm hoping that there's been enough publicity that there'll be some people that come in. And okay, so let's see, we've covered that. Let's go to the next page. Okay, so then we have the policy. You have to have a policy when you're doing this because you have to have guidelines by how you do different things. You got to establish who can use your seed catalog. In our case, since our library is just the services in our library are just open to students, faculty, and staff, we apply those same rules to the seed catalog. So students, staff, and faculty can take 3 packets a month. We decided to settle on 3 and then go forward if we needed to do less or more, but we thought 3 was pretty generous at first. So that's how many you can take and how often, 3 a month. We do allow for donations. We welcome donations. Right now, all the donations will come through me, so I can make sure that they're labeled correctly and make sure they're in good shape. They're not moldy or or dried up or anything like that. We're not going to be too picky because we would like some donations to come back, and we want to encourage that whole part of the fun is taking the seeds and then giving back the seeds. So we want this to be a very fun process. We want it to be something that helps sustaining measures, and people learn how to grow things. And then, this didn't work out, let me try something else. We want it to be fun. But so those are the very few casual rules we have. What about you, Grace? How do you manage all that?
I was going to say with us, who can use RC Library is all of the patrons. So we have both students, staff, faculty, and community borrowers. And it is I was going to say, exciting environment. We have a lot of students, faculty, staff, and community borrowers who are always so interested in the C Library coming back each and every year. So everyone can use RC Library. We typically ask that both student, staff, faculty, and community members take roughly 3 seeds per week, and this depends on the needs of seeds. Last year, the biggest need was tomatoes, so we needed a lot of tomato donations, tomato seeds to be put within that card catalog, and listening to those folks who were asking for those specific seeds. We do allow donations, and those are typically collected within the front circulation desk. So myself or my circulation assistant will either collect those seeds. We do ask those that do donate that they meet a certain criteria. We have a form that's given that has the patron, community borrower, staff, or faculty member to circle which category. Is it an herb? Is it a flower? Is it a vegetable? Most of those things that are there, we typically have labeled within this donational sheet that allows them to either fill out what they know about that particular seed. And most of the time, those germination processes that we have collected from donations have turned out well. So it's been a win-win. I was going to say,
That's
Ashley, it's been a
that
win-win.
to know since we haven't had any yet, but that's
Yeah,
great. So
yeah.
that's, and we have pictures this is our final slide, but we have pictures. The Fayetteville Tech one is on the left, and Grace's beautiful catalog, I love her catalog, is on the right. You see over here, we've put some texts that are related on the top. We're going to try to keep that up and change it out seasonally. And we also have the Dropbox I was talking about, where they fill out the cards of what they took. And those are the 2 folders there that have the information on growing. And then this is just a hodgepodge of anything I could find that was related to our zones and our growing, and just fun stuff about pollinators and things like that.
Great. Well, thank you, Ashley and Grace. For our final presentation, I'm pleased to pleased to introduce our next session. It's called Civic Engagement in Public Libraries by Anna Snyder. Anna entered the library field in 2012 and has experience in academic, digital, special, and public libraries. So after obtaining her MSLS and MP/MPA degrees from UNC Chapel Hill in 2015, she began working at the Wayne County Public Library in Goldsboro, North Carolina, which is her childhood library, by the way. So she was there as the head of children's services. And since then, she served as the head of reference and now assistant director of civic participation. Now assistant director. So for her, civic participation is a major interest of hers and a focus area of her work. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Anna.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to talk about civic engagement today, and big thanks to Jake from NC Live for helping me. My slides, my computer had a fundamental disagreement with Zoom, so just big thanks to him. So we're going to talk really quickly about some things our library has done to kind of engage our community around voting, just being informed, different things related to civic engagement. All right, Jake. Okay, so we'll just talk really quickly about some things. National Voter Registration Day is a major thing that we do here in this area of work. And I'll kind of talk about how we get the word out about what we're doing, some lessons that we've learned, and some plans we have for future events. Okay, so in the beginning, our library is in Goldsboro. It has been a polling location for a million years, it feels like. We typically would put up kind of like president related book displays during election time and things like that. We've always had voter registration forms available, but we didn't ever really do anything extra to kind of engage folks when they showed up at the library to vote. And so kind of around like 2019, 2020, we were like, there's a ton of extra people here during election season. What can we do to kind of entice them to come into the library, to be more informed about what they're doing when they come to vote, and just to kind of get interested in, civic related topics, not so much politics, but just like how to be an informed voter. So some of the kind of first things that we had considered doing like a candidates forum at the library. But we talked to our local board of elections, and they're like, we're a county organization. You can invite all the candidates, but if a certain number from this party show up and these other ones don't, it could give the appearance that we are advocating for one party above the other or one candidate above the other. So we're like, well, we can't really do that. So we had talked about hosting some kind of like voter 101 program in conjunction with the Board of Elections, just because North Carolina does have some pretty particular voting rules that are different from other states. When we got into COVID, a lot of them changed in terms of like absentee ballots and curbside voting and all of those things. So we just wanted to kind of give the best information that we could. But in 2020, the state library, or the Library of North Carolina now, launched an initiative to get public libraries in the state to promote and celebrate National Voter Registration Day. And we're like, okay, this is great. There'll be other people doing this. This is a national thing that we can kind of hook on to and get support from other people involved. And so we decided to do that. And I think at the time I was still the children's librarian, but I had a personal interest in this. So I became like the point person for that. And so we're like, we're a polling place, we're a library. What better place in the community for people to go to for good information about issues of all types, candidates of all types. You can meet people with different points of view from yours at the library. So we felt really strongly that this was an area that we needed to kind of expand into. Okay, next. Okay, so some of the first things that we did, during 2020, it was COVID. We were pretty shut down. We could only have certain numbers of people in here. So our first National Voter Registration Day event was really teeny, but we publicized the event and just regular like voter information through our normal library channels. So in 2020, mostly on social media. These are the deadlines by which you have to be registered. These are the places that you go vote. These are the times, dates, like all of that good stuff. Just so we would know that people would have somewhere to find that information. Over time, we were able to kind of expand those offerings after things kind of opened up a little bit more, creating new partnerships with different organizations locally was something that we really enjoyed. And I have some flyers here on my slide of different things that we did over time. So one year we partnered with the League of Women Voters. We had a chapter here for a while. I was really thrilled about that because the auditorium in our library is named after Gertrude Wheel, and she was one of the founders of the North Carolina League of Women Voters. So I thought that was a cool, like, full circle moment for us. We've partnered with the Board of Elections here to have a voter photo ID event. They brought their machine that creates the photo IDs for people when that became a requirement in North Carolina. We've done trivia night at local bar. That was really fun. We've had people come in and just talk about the history of voting in the South and in North Carolina in particular. And we have also kind of hooked our voter registration push each year with National Library Card Sign Up Month to kind of say, you need all of this information. This is a good place to get all of your information. And so come and sign up for all of these things at one time. So We also have a voter tools tab on our website. We've gotten like posters and banners and stuff in the library. We got stickers from National Voter Registration Day from the Board of Elections. We got pins made one year. So we just want people to be excited about voting and just to be confident in the decisions that they are making. Okay, next. Okay, these are just some pictures, mostly of me running our National Voter Registration Day events over the past couple of years. You can see the first year masked up. The top was when we had the League of Women Voters come. We've had a couple of different volunteers help us out with those programs. So those are just some pictures. We try to make it really fun. All right, next. Okay, so why is this work important? So low voter turnout can significantly impact your daily life. So a lot of people think about presidential elections, but don't really turn out as strongly for local and state elections. But those elections can impact your daily life in like major ways. So the decisions that like your county commissioners or your town board or mayor or whoever makes can impact your life in a bigger way than the president a lot of times. So it's really important for you to kind of know what's going on. At least in our area, the composition of our local government and state government doesn't really match with voter affiliation of people who are registered. So if one party is more represented in elections than the other, the feelings and decisions of this whole group are kind of discounted. So things don't turn out the way that they want. And so how do you combat that? You need to go vote. You need to know who you're voting for and kind of choose the best person to carry out the things that you feel strongly about. It's a way to advocate for yourself and your community. The library is a great place to come learn about candidates. You can learn about who is running, who is in your district, what elections are happening, what issues do they feel strongly about, and things like that. Librarians are great at finding unbiased sources of information, or at least sources from both sides, so you can come up with your own conclusion. Okay, next. Okay, some of the lessons that we've learned through doing this work is to consider your local partners. So I was really jazzed about working with the League of Women Voters. Our county doesn't actually have a chapter anymore. All of the members were very elderly, and so our chapter kind of just closed. So they helped us run our table, but they weren't an ongoing partner for us, which was really disappointing to me. We've worked with our Board of Elections just because they're in our building anyway, but they do want people to kind of understand what's going on during election season. We've had a lot of good experiences partnering with our local community college as well. They do a lot of work there around Constitution Week. We have a pretty active local DAR chapter as well, just to kind of have a variety of people interested in government and history and politics kind of working together on this kind of thing. Consider alternate locations for your programs. Our meeting room where we have all of our programs is taken over during election time. So we often have to go outside the library for programming during election season, which is fine. And it's a good way to get out in the community and have more people kind of understand that we are involved in this work. And then consider civics-related programming leading up to your voting registration day activities for more traction. A lot of people are registered to vote already, so you may not sign up a ton of people on the actual day, but a lot of people don't know their polling location. And so the information you're sharing may be different than what you expect. So just kind of be aware of that if you embark on this kind of work. It's more than a one-day thing a year. So just be kind of aware of, what elections are coming up and what questions people may ask of you. Okay, next. Okay, we have some future plans in this area. We really want to, we were going to do it this year, but we had some staff turnover. So next year we hope to hold a civics camp for middle schoolers to kind of demystify different parts of different levels of government, to kind of have people kind of have a better understanding of what government does at different levels. Consider new community partners. We're always on the lookout for people to work with in our community. And then also, lastly, I would say it's important to keep an eye on voting rights related legislation to ensure that staff are sharing accurate information. I think that is most of what I had. So if y'all have any questions, please let me know. Okay.